Hi everyone, my name is Celeste and I am hiking 2,650 miles from Mexico to Canada on the PCT. I thought I would take some time to answer some of the questions that people have asked me over the past couple months and to share a little bit more about myself and my hiking. The first question that I'm asked so frequently when I tell someone I'm hiking from Mexico to Canada is why? And honestly, that is probably going to be another whole video. I've done a lot of soul searching in trying to find the answer to that, and I'm really happy that I was able to do that. However, it's kind of a convoluted answer, and I want to take my time in answering it. So we'll go on to the next question. The questions that I get very often are you hiking alone? And aren't you scared? So let's talk about those. First of all, in almost all of my 2,500 plus miles of hiking and backpacking in the last 2 years, I have been solo. I did the long trail by myself. I hiked the NPT by myself. I have had some hiking partners that I've met along the way, and some of the other hikes that I've done have either been with a friend or partly with a friend and partly solo. That's a little ironic because I'm actually a very social person and I don't hate being alone, but I enjoy people and I enjoy talking with people and sharing time and adventures with people. But I also really do love hiking on my own, backpacking on my own. Spending a night alone in the woods is just fantastic. It's rejuvenating, it's refreshing, it's challenging, and it is something that I enjoy doing just as much on my own as I do with someone else. So for this hike, I am going to be actually starting with a friend, and we're not sure how long that we will have schedules that coincide, but for now, until one of us has obligations that takes us off trail, we will be hiking together. So that's fun and something a little different for me. Another question that I get a lot is, oh my gosh, aren't you scared? And while I do have a healthy respect for nature, weather, wildlife, the unknowns of a trail and exploring places that I've never been, no, I'm not scared. I do make sure to educate myself as much as possible about the trail that I'm going to be on, the area where I am. So as far as possible wildlife, do I need to be concerned about bears? What are the restrictions for campfires and stoves? Is a bear canister required? What is the water situation? May I need microspikes or snowshoes or an ice axe? So all of those things are things that I research as much as possible, but you can't ever know what's going to happen. And with me being a planner, that's actually a really good thing for me because it helps me to learn to be more flexible and to kind of let life unfold a little bit more than maybe I'm used to. So again, while I'm not scared, I definitely have a healthy respect for everything that you might find in the wild. I also do have I would say, healthy awareness of other people. But again, I'm not going to allow being afraid of something that might happen with a very small chance stop me from living my life. This is beautiful. I love it. So as a woman, especially when I'm hiking alone, I definitely am extra careful about not advertising that I am alone or not advertising my location. So of course, when I post videos, I mention that I'm alone, but it's not something that I advertise ahead of time and make sure that I'm not telling people exactly when and where I'll be somewhere, if that makes sense. So for example, I won't be using Strava when I'm hiking the PCT, although I do that when I'm home. I will delay my videos by a period of time. Also, I'm sure it's going to be hard to keep up with them, so who knows if that'll be a consistent amount of time or not. When I'm hiking alone, if I meet people on the trail, I'm friendly, I'm sociable, I talk, but I don't necessarily tell them where I'm heading that evening. I don't necessarily mention how long I will be on trail or where my car is parked if I'm hiking to my car. If someone comes across me when I'm already camped, often I will mention that I'm waiting for a friend, and sometimes I am. Sometimes I'm just being a little careful. So there's lots of ways to be careful and to not be stupid on the trail. But realistically, the level of crime on a backpacking trail is very, very low and not something that I am super concerned about. I have also in the past taken some self-defense classes to make sure that I am able to take care of myself. I have carried pepper spray or bear spray, and I always have a small knife with me. So I guess I'm just saying I'm not scared. I try to be careful, but I don't think that as women or as men, we should allow ourselves to not do something that we want to do because we're afraid. In addition to researching and preparing for a trail, I'll also always check the weather. Always check any trail reports or Facebook groups that might give me information that I don't even know, that I don't know. Check for trail closures. On the PCT, I'll need to check water reports, and I'll need to check, I don't know if you call them fire reports, but there are definitely wildfires that we will need to be aware of. And I'm going to make sure to bring whatever safety items that I feel or within reason that others may feel are important as I go out. So there are the 10 essentials of hiking that I typically carry all or most of on every hike. I will leave a link to my version of the 10 essentials in the description below and what it is that I take with me. One thing that I noticed that many thru hikers don't carry is a paper map. And I don't remember if I mentioned it in my gear video or not. I almost always carry a paper map and compass. The PCT is so big, and I guess it was on the Pinhoti that I kind of gave into this a little bit, because the Pinhoti is also, 351 miles or 353. But you can't get just one map of the Pinhoti. You can get a map of the different national forests, or at least I didn't see it. I did bring paper trail description of whatever sections that I was hiking through, but I tended really not to use those much. So on the PCT, it's a well-traveled trail. There are a lot of people that travel the trail with you. So from my understanding, you're likely to see hikers relatively often. I think that through the Sierra, I will carry my paper map and compass just in case I lose phone or, my phone dies or something happens. But for the most part, I'm not going to be carrying the paper map. I will use the Far Out app. I will also have as a backup maps downloaded into my Onyx Backcountry app, which I use for alternate trails, terrain, or just, in case for some reason Far Out isn't working. When I was hiking the long trail, I did actually lose my phone, so I could no longer use Far Out. I did not ever find it, even though I hiked an extra 7 miles that day looking for it. So I went 8 days without any type of digital navigation on the trail. So for the most part, I was either meeting up with friends in the morning, in the evening, able to kind of gauge my plans based on their statements of what they saw on Far Out or looking at their phones. But I didn't really hike with anyone for the most part on the long trail. So the days that I was by myself, there were a few rougher areas with tornadoes, recent tornadoes, lots of blowdowns, trail reroutes, and I did have a little difficulty figuring out not where the trail was, but which trail was which, because it wasn't marked as well as most of the rest of the trail. So in those cases, I actually pulled out my map and compass. I will not claim to be an expert in navigating in that way, but I was able to at least tell where I was and which way I needed to go. So that helped. Another question that I got that I thought was a really good question was, do you ever doubt yourself? And if so, how do you handle it? And I would say, absolutely, I do. I went from someone who was doing a couple day hikes a year to a person who just could not get enough of hiking and was doing 20 plus mile days, trying to section hike the Finger Lakes Trail in New York, and said to myself, oh my gosh, if only there was a way that I didn't have to go home between my hikes. I could do so much more and it would be awesome. I guess there's a thing called backpacking. But I had no idea about backpacking. I always say that my first backpacking trip was in March of 2023. However, I realized later that when I went to college, I went to Wheaton College near Chicago, and we had this program called High Road, where I think it was a 2-week backpacking trip through the wilderness in Michigan. So I had been on a backpacking trip, but I guess, and I loved it, but I guess a part of me just thought that was just stuff you did as part of your college orientation, not like for the rest of your life. In 2022 is when I started really hiking more, joining hiking challenges, loving it, having so much fun, spending time outside, learning a little bit here and there, but I really knew nothing, and that's fine. As I went, I learned. I watched a few YouTube videos, I listened to some podcasts, but once I found out that, yeah, there is actually this thing called backpacking that people do, and I can do it around where I live, and it would be so fun, then I just jumped in. Over the winter of 22-23, I spent almost all of my spare time listening to the Backpacking podcast, Backpacking in Blisters podcast, watching YouTubers, especially Dixie Dan Becker, a couple others like that, who really helped me to get an idea and an education, what kinds of things I might need to learn, what kinds of things I might need to buy, what kinds of things I should take with me. And then, thankfully, my son, Taylor, excellent skiers and experienced in hiking and backpacking, and the three of us went on what I call my first trip at the end of March 2023, and we skied up Mount Marcy in the Adirondacks and skied down. We spent 2 nights at camp, and it was awesome. It was 22 one night and 12 the next night, and I was so happy the whole time, except when Taylor wouldn't let me eat breakfast before we started. But had an amazing time, and they said, if you like this, you're going to like anything. So I loved it, and I was hooked. 2.5 months later, I hiked the NPT, which is a 140-mile trail in the Adirondacks, in the Adirondack region, I should say. And then a couple months after that, I thru-hiked the Long Trail in Vermont. So that's kind of my progression. The point for me telling you all that is that, yes, I doubted myself. I knew nothing. I asked questions. I consulted experts. I kept a spreadsheet. I kept several spreadsheets. I planned, I overplanned, and just enjoyed each step of the way. So yeah, I doubted myself, but I prepared myself as best I could for what I could encounter, made sure that I had safety measures in place. I have a Garmin inReach, so in case there were ever a problem, I would be able to contact help without cell service, and I just went for it. I would say it's a balance because you can't plan and control everything, but you can definitely be prepared so that you can have confidence. And then along the way, I definitely doubted myself. I would start climbing a mountain and think, how the heck am I going to do this? How am I going to hike this whole trail by myself if I can't even get up this first mountain? I remember when I took a tumble down into a road, a gap on the Long Trail, my second day. It was a pretty severe tumble, and I could have been seriously hurt. I even ripped a double hole in my hiking pants with my trekking poles. And I just remember shaking so much, and it was so scary. And nobody was with me. I was almost in tears, and I almost started bawling my head off, and I'm like, you got to get up and get going. So I got up and got going, and then my pack was heavy, and it was a steep uphill. And I remember this big rock that the trail went through. It was a split rock, and you had to walk right between this huge, beautiful formation. And my pack was so heavy. I was so sad and whiny and lame. Well, not lame. It's okay to be sad and whiny. You just have to deal with it. But I remember stopping in that rock and having what I called my come to Jesus moment. And I'm like to myself, you're gonna fall. You're gonna be tired. You're gonna be hot and sweaty. Your pack is gonna be heavy. You're not gonna be hiking with somebody all the time. And you knew this going in. And so now you're experiencing it. It's a test. It's a part of the experience. So either you're going to suck it up and do this trail and feel the feelings and remember that the challenges are just as much a part of this as the high points, or you might as well just pack it up now. And it really did change my attitude. I was still tired. I was still kind of shaky from falling down a mountain, a cliff, basically. I had gone head over heels. But I was able to just take those things as part of the experience and not say, well, these should be thrown away and only the good things should count. And that's not to say I never doubted myself again either. I remember climbing up Bolton Mountain, or is it Bolton Valley Mountain? Whatever. It was this mountain that probably isn't even in anybody's head as being super challenging, but I had miscalculated my far out route for the day, so I'd wasted a whole lot of time. I was tired, I was hungry, I didn't have any water because I kept looking at the water that was all full of pine needle juice, tannins, whatever they are, and thinking, ooh, look at this. And thinking, I am so tired, I don't know if I can make it up this hill. And thinking, oh, I'll just wait till the next water source. I'll wait till the next water source. And then I didn't get to the next water source as quickly as I thought I would. And then that water source was dry. and it was just discouraging. But at times like that, I listen to music. I listen to an audiobook or podcast if I have one. At that time, I actually texted a friend and said, I can't do this. Give me some motivation. And they said, you're strong, you're awesome, you can do this. So I literally climbed the rest of the mountain singing a nonsense tune song that I'm strong, I'm awesome, I can do this. And guess what? I was strong, I was awesome, and I did it. And I got to the most beautiful shelter with the most beautiful views and an amazing sunrise. And it was just another thing that built my confidence. So that's the thing. When you overcome something small, you get more self-confidence. And the more things you overcome, the more you can do, and the more confidence that you will have available to you if you choose to hold on to it. So the other thing that I do when I doubt myself is to check my mindset and stop focusing on the end goal. So part of that is enjoying the moment, staying in the moment, which has been one of my life lessons that I've been learning. I guess that's called being mindful. But the other one is just not letting the big goal or the big obstacle take over my thinking. For example, I had a 6,000 foot ascent day planned at one point on the long trail. I don't remember when. It was probably Camel's Hump or Mount Mansfield or something. And I remember just like waking up so nervous that I wasn't going to be able to do it because 6,000 feet of ascent is so much. And it was just daunting. But I just stopped thinking about the 6,000 and just started walking. And one step at a time, one mountain at a time, one uphill at a time. Before I knew it, I was done. I'll also admit I lied a little bit to myself. Sometimes you just need to say, well, sometimes this can be true, but you can just say, look, if the 6,000 feet is too much, I will stop early. And having a hammock, I have a little more ability to do that than other people sometimes if you have a tent. But even with a tent, you can find places to camp that aren't necessarily on the list. I guess I'm practicing getting my feet wet on this hike today. So So yeah, so I would say you can stop early if you want to. And sometimes that was true. Sometimes it probably wasn't true, but it worked. And I don't know, there's times I stopped early, but it wasn't because I couldn't do it. It was because I loved this spot or, you know, something like that. And then there's times that I've gone further than I thought I could. Like when I hiked 21 miles and on the Pinhoti and it was 4 o'clock and I went, might as well keep going. So I did. And for me, that's a huge accomplishment. I'm old. In fact, right now I'm lost. Well, not like actually lost, but I don't know where the trail is. I was talking and not looking. So that's something that could freak me out, but it doesn't. I got footprints in the snow. I've got my map on my phone, and I'll figure it out.
So on that note, tune in next time to find out whether or not I actually found the trail again, how wet my feet were, and the answers to the rest of the frequently asked questions. Thanks for watching.